Welcome back to another episode of Smart Talks. I'm your host, Joanna Suhele Rampas. Sabah's oil and gas wealth has shaped our politics, our economy, and our relationship with the federal government for decades. But today, we're at the crossroads between old narratives and as well as new realities. Now, is Petronas really taking 95% of our oil wealth? Or have we misunderstood the numbers? Now, and beyond fighting for our royalties, how do we make sure Sabahans actually benefit through jobs, contracts, and opportunities that last? So in this episode, we'll unpack the myths, explore solutions, and talk about how Sabah can lead its own energy future. And joining me today in the studio is Jesselton Jason, and he is the Vice President of the Sabah Oil and Gas Services Council, the council that represents Sabah's local contractors, SMEs, and service providers in the oil and gas sector. Now, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Right. Okay. So let's dive into the clearing the revenue myths. As we've seen in the news lately, there was a statement by the former Minister of Economy, and I think that it had spurred a lot of contentious issues and also discussions, heated discussions among not only people in the stakeholders perhaps in the oil and gas industry, but as well as politicians too, right? And one of Sabah's most heated debates, which is oil royalty. And for years the narrative was that Petronas takes 95% of our oil wealth. But again, recently Rahsia clarified that Petronas's net profit margins are closer to 10 to 15%, and it's not 95%. So I understand that perhaps this skepticism remains, Jesselton, because decades of perceived economic disparity, right? And I think making this narrative more emotionally powerful. So, every time, and, as far as we are concerned too, it's also being politicized, especially when we know the election is around the corner as we are now, right? Yeah. So perhaps you could guide us through the statement that Rafizi Ramli has made. What was the reaction from the oil and gas industry, the stakeholders, and is it true that Petronas grabs 95% profit, or is this a misconception?
All right. First and foremost, I would like to say that Petronas, like any business entities, definitely they will come with certain operating costs, certain exploration costs, and everything in their business model.
Okay.
So let's go back to the 95% first. So 95%, of course, the 5% we see is royalties. Actually, 10%, 5 to the federal and 5 to the state government. And then you have further sales tax, 5%, that's given to both Sabah and Sarawak state government. So whatever remaining there, just like any other business, you have your operating costs and capital expenditure itself.
Okay.
So oil and gas is a very technical business, I may say. So let's talk about deep water exploration, okay? Or maybe simple exploration activities. Exploration activities involve survey vessels, involve drilling rigs to be present, involve specialized manpower, even international companies, those international companies to come in to provide those expertise to get those hydrocarbon out from our Sabah's water lah. So firstly, the cost itself we can see is enormous, we can say. And the market right now for deep water exploration itself is around $60 to $65, maybe upwards of $70 US. That's the cost itself to extract a single barrel of oil. So with current crude oil price of Brent $85 US, so you really have that kind of margin there. And those margins, you have to see, you need to pay for tax, further 38% petroleum tax further imposed by the federal government. In addition to that, you might have your production sharing contractors like Shell, Exxon, ConocoPhillips to be there. So they share the revenue, share the profits there.
Okay.
So that's why more or less when they say the oil and gas industry have 10 to 15% margin, well, that might be true in a sense, but let me not be Petronas. I'm not Petronas to say how much is their margin. But in our calculation, even in the OGSC segment, those margins are acceptable margins in the industry, like 10 to 15%, I may say. But of course, this kind of margins, we see how Petronas activities or operations are involved. Maybe if they are in the shallow waters, there might be cheaper margins there because you might not need specialized vessels. You might not need specialized rigs. You might not need even specialized manpower to extract the oil from the ground. So that one, you might have higher margins there. But overall, Petronas operation, because they are so huge, to say 10 to 15, I might not even want to go in that sense lah, because that one Petronas, the finance team, they know how much is the margin, but the market itself is seeing around that area also. Even our OGSC segment, which is the oil and gas services and equipment segment, is also in around 10 to 15% margin itself. Yeah.
So in that sense, you are saying that Petronas does not grab 95% lah.
No. That's definitely not the right narrative per se, because you can't have 95 margins, 95% taken to you. You have your exploration costs,
yes,
your labor costs and everything. So these cost money, and tons of money have to be spent for one particular project. So we can't just say 95% purely Petronas ambil. So that one, I can say that narrative might not be a correct narrative.
Okay. Now, you see, now we have heard, this demands of 20%, right, and of royalty, right, and as someone who has been in the oil and gas industry for quite some time now, you think should Sabah continue pushing for a 20% royalty? Because if Sabah pushes, this is my take on it, right? If Sabah pushes for a 20% royalty rate, we must consider three things. Number one, the impact of Petronas sustainability, right? We are looking at federal tax collection and also national development funds, and also investments attractiveness for international operators. So these are the things that we have to consider, right? So as a person in this industry, do you think that Sabah should push for a 20% royalty, or focus on it, or focus on an alternative method or model?
All right. I think that's a very good question that you ask. Of course, if Sabah State wish to pursue the 20%, that would be good because you get direct 20%. But like you mentioned, the three particulars in terms of sustainability of Petronas operations and the business segment, the attractiveness of foreign investors, and overall the national funds itself.
Yeah.
So I might say that let the state government handle that matter. So if they wish to go for 20%, that would be good because you get 20% revenue. Money directly coming into the state coffer without even doing anything. But we know that that's a bit difficult to get the 20% directly. So right now you have 5% royalty, 5% sales tax. So that sums up to 10%. So how do you get further revenue from the oil and gas?
Yeah.
So may I share that the state government had signed the CCA, or the Commercial Collaboration Agreement, back in the 7th of December 2021.
All right.
So it was signed by the Petronas President and CEO Tengku Taufik himself, Tan Sri Tengku Taufik, and our Yang Amat Berhormat, Datuk Sri Panglima Haji Haji Noor. So the collaboration agreements basically stipulated to three things: greater sharing, greater revenue, and greater participation. So greater sharing means greater sharing of the resources, sharing of the natural resources between Petronas and Sabah State itself. Secondly is the revenue sharing. So instead of relying, I think that the state government had seen that instead of relying of asking more a dividend, which they are entitled to ask also, but then that's another separate discussion. So instead of relying that, let's find a workable model where they can generate revenue directly. So this is where the participation comes in, the greater participation. So that's where I think on the same day itself, the Chief Minister announced that there is a state-owned oil and gas company. So it's named SMJ Energy Sdn Bhd. So that's where SMJ Energy is able to participate directly with all the oil producing fields in Sabah and get equities from there. And from the equities, they will get dividend from the sales of those crude oil and gas or natural resources, we might say, from those particular fields. So we see that kind of model, which actually the industry is saying is more workable model compared to you asking for a 20%. Because this kind of model is more on a collaborative. So the CCA itself is also meant collaborative agreement. So we collaborate with Petronas to get the revenue back to the Sabah state. So, okay, let's go back to the basic in oil and gas,
Yes.
right? Well, SMJ right now, they are having equities in productions, already mature production fields.
Exactly.
For example, Semarang, Sumandak, up west. So these are already matured field. I mean, it's had been 20 years operating in Sabah. Some are 30 years old. So they're producing oil, and that's basically straightforward. You already have the oil producing out.
Correct, yeah.
So I think SMJ had already taken up to 50%, which they had under CCA. They could take up to 50% equity of a particular concession or oil field. So what they did is they exercised their rights and took up 50% oil field, 50% equity in that particular field itself. So if you see in the news recently, they also took up 25% of Samur, 25% of ZLNG. So those are all producing assets. I mean that those are downstream, but those are producing assets. So they took up equity there, and whatever profits that they are getting from this producing assets, they will be given 25% whatever profits lah then, right? So dividend to the state government itself. So let's look into the other segment. Other segment like non-producing assets yet, or non-producing oil field.
Yeah.
For example, the very much in the news, Mutiara cluster. So Mutiara cluster is a new cluster. It's not layman term lah. Dia belum lagi kena explore.
Belum kena belum kena cari, belum kena tengok.
I may say lah, it's virgin territory.
Okay.
All right. So nobody touched that place
Untouched
yet. Untouched yet. So when you do exploration activities, so you have to do research in layman terms lah. You need to do research. You need to understand whether that particular field had oil and gas or not. If yes, is it economically viable for me to extract those oil and gas? So that's the second question. So when it's economically viable, then the next question is how are we going to make the modus operandi in that particular area? So shall we have a fixed platform? Shall we have a floating platform, etc., etc.? Or maybe we have a wellhead connect to shore with a pipeline underwater. So all these activities would involve X numbers of costs. So it can run up to a billion or 2 billion ringgit of costs. So of course, SMJ Energy is being cautious. So they don't invest in explorations kind of a field. So when it's proven, when oil is found lah, in a layman term lah, jumpa minyak, then they will exercise their right under CCA to get up to 50%.
Right.
My understanding is because the CCA is under Official Secret Act also, so they might have 5 to 7.5% carry forward free share. Then subsequently they have exercise up to 50%, right? So the others, they might need to pay for the share. So, but then it's a safe investment to pay. It's because you already see the asset producing hydrocarbons.
Okay.
So you have no worries. You know, for the next 10 to 15 years, the asset will be producing money in a sense. Like it will be given dividend to the state government itself through SMJ Energy. So I see they are going into that direction.
Okay.
To be prudent and safe investor. So that's how SMJ Energy operates in Sabah currently.
Right. So if I can conclude our first segment now on the what do you call this, on the revenue myths that has been airing to the Sabahans, and I would say that focusing solely on the royalties risk oversimplifying Sabahan's fiscal landscape, I suppose, right? And I think also to secure fairer deals, another point that I would like to ask you before we close the first segment is that in terms of transparency, cost audits, right, and long-term win-win situation between Petronas, federal government, and state. And I think that is also something that we have to be cautious of, because that is what Petronas and Petros are facing right now. And as for Sabah, so far, there's no much issue. But what do you think on the transparency on, PSC negotiation, for example, audits, tax structures? Where is the revenue going to from, like the 10 to 15% margin? Yes, correct. But where does the money go to? What do you think? I mean, as a person in this industry.
I think, Joanna, that's very good question also. But coming back to audits and everything, I think Petronas had the sensitivity on not revealing certain financial documents, certain revenue, what revenue they are coming in.
At least we know where the money is going, right? From Sabah.
I think for Sabah, let's speak about Sabah itself,
yes.
Right? Let's not go the whole Petronas organization.
Let's just go for Sabah.
So Sabah, I think they are very transparent in the process itself. Why? Number one, the mechanism of having a 5% royalty and 5% sales tax means that you need to know how much volume you extract from the ground. So definitely there is a mechanism in place. Those mechanisms, for example, can be in terms of technical mechanisms, like you have a flow meter in place there. You know how much in and out, how much is being extracted out from Sabah. So in sense of audit, because this is more onto higher up, this mostly into SMJ Energy, and I think MOF is involved. They have an understanding with Petronas to get the numbers, so that when they get the numbers, for example, if you have heard in 2023 Hibiscus, they were saying not paying the SST of 5%. They paid the 5% royalty but not SST because they say, SST has been landed. It's the oil is landed in Labuan, therefore we are exempted and whatsoever. But because of, definitely there's a transparency there, the state is able to identify how much oil is being produced from those assets and how much oil is being sold off. So definitely there's a mechanism in place in Sabah state itself to know the X amount of hydrocarbons being produced and to know how much we can charge them. So that's from a very simple perspective. But of course, the second perspective is you get oil fields, right? You want to know how many further oil field you can monetize.
Yeah, that's true.
So I believe during the initial discussion before CCA, Petronas tend to be a bit secretive. I mean, that's also because Petronas have their own trade secrets. We might say any companies have their own trade secrets. But slowly, Petronas is opening their doors hand in hand with SMJ to work on potential areas where they can monetize it, where they can further extract natural gas, because right now natural gas is where the world is going through with decarbonization. So we want to get rid of the slicky oil, but going to a more cleaner natural gas. So they are open with Sabah State to identify areas. But then, of course, Sabah State have to bring in the investment, not investment per se, but investors who would like to use those natural resources. Because you can't be taking out natural resources, then after that you're not using it, so you don't monetize it. So my point of view is there is some mechanism ongoing. Therefore, that's why we can see Sabah State continue to receive those payments in terms of dividend, in terms of sales tax, and they continue to have the collaboration with Petronas to identify new areas in Sabah to monetize it in terms of natural gas and oil itself.
Okay, right. Now, let's take a short break. All right, now let's talk about building Sabah's industrial strength. Okay, so we have all this. We know that Sabah is the economy in Sabah is the rentier economy, where the economy is purely and simply from the assets that we have in the state, and of course in this manner it's oil and gas, right? Now, so you see, when we look at Sarawak, so always Sabah will always look at Sarawak when it goes to
our elder brother.
So, when it comes to oil and gas, right? And Sarawak's way, they have Petros. Okay, a top to down model where Petros, Sarawak state-owned company, okay, has the legal right to be a partner for any new oil and oil projects, and enforces strict local hiring rules also, right? But and if we listen, the Sabahans, in fact, they always say that kita pun mau ada macam Petros bah. But from the first segment that we've discussed just now, we have SMJ Energy, right? Perhaps there is an important comparison between these two, SMJ and Petros. Perhaps you can clarify or enlighten us even further. How these two entities are the same but not the same.
I think the similarity between these two entities, they are both state-owned oil company.
Okay.
So per se, one is Sabah, one is Sarawak State.
Right.
But the modus operandi itself differs. Petros, like you mentioned, they would like to go into the system itself of being an operator itself. You see, Petros is actively being in offshore, getting blocks and operate. They want to operate those blocks or the oil field concession itself. But we have SMJ Energy. SMJ Energy sees that the best financial way, or the what you call this, the most economic way for Sabah to go forward is, instead of being an operator, why not you invest in the oil field and get the dividend back? So the modus operandi differs in the sense that Petros is more aggressively going into blocks and taking up concessions and operating it. But Sabah, we start off with having equity, and I believe subsequently there will be an operator when the finance is good. So like it or not, Sabah State only give, I think, a few million ringgit of seed money to SMJ Energy. And they have managed to turn the company to a 5 billion ringgit company as of today.
Okay.
So the success story is there. They have sold, I think, X number of oil cargoes to the market itself. And then they have given dividend back to the state. I think they are now the highest dividend payer to the state government, the highest GLC who's paid dividend to the state.
SMJ, yeah?
SMJ Energy. The second, I believe, might be SEC, if not mistaken. But SMJ Energy right now is the biggest a dividend payer to the state government.
Okay.
So it means that their model is a successful model without having to incur as too much financial burden onto the state government. So you mentioned just now I like it when you say strict local requirement. SMJ also emphasize on strict local requirement. They work hand in hand with SOGSC together with Petronas, enforcing strict local requirements for local vendors in the supply chain also. So in a way, maybe because the people are not aware of this, awareness need to be done. But SMJ is going to a successful business model where they can extract dividend to the state government. So basically these two, whether it's Petros or SMJ, the ultimate goal is to make money for their shareholders. And both are making money for the shareholder. But the models are different. The uniqueness of the state itself make the different model of how we do things in Sabah and in Sarawak.
I guess you bring up a very good point. You see, I mean, let's go a bit off tangent now lah. You know, a lot of people say that kita mesti macam mau Sarawak. Tetapi there are some things I believe that we cannot be like Sarawak. We have to have our own ways to deal with things. I think not only of course, you know, people, you know, even in politics, they say, oh, kita mau, you know, party semua, local-based party macam Sarawak, and all these things. Tapi reality, it can't work that way. And I guess it's the same too here as an oil and gas too, right?
Yes, correct.
You want to be like Sarawak, but again, you know, your capacity also pun tidak sama.
Betul.
I like it when you say that, you know, awareness. You see that a lot of these young people in Sarawak, they really they talk a lot about oil and gas, right? But unfortunately, here in Sabah, I don't know, maybe if you see this from your experience in oil and gas, there is not a lot of, tidak banyak our orang muda ini will go into the oil and gas industry. Maybe a lot of them will go, but more on the, how can you say, the macam selalu pergi offshore and then yang kerja berat. How do I say this? Yang not the technical part.
They are the, what you call this?
Apa ini?
More on the non-technical
manpowers. Yes. Most of them will go for the non-technical manpowers. But the technical manpower, the more technical manpowers, the one that requires expertise, I would say, banyak yang kena import. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
Right? So do you think that, you know, Sabah needs to prepare or have a certain policy or mungkin buat satu dasar lah orang bilang, how do we get more of our young people or to prepare them for this industry, because we cannot forever just be investors kan. We have to be one day to be operators of our own oil fields too. Of course, for me, if I would look at this, you know, you cannot be asking people to do mengurus rumah kau sendiri bah. You know what I mean?
Understood.
In a layman term lah. Takkan kau mau panggil orang mau urus rumah kau kan? So I think it's time for us to also think ahead for our young generation, and also to see, you know, what Sabah needs in the next 20 years to come. We cannot just rely on outside expertise, I would say. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, Joanna, I think first thing first, there is already the dasar in place. So the Chief Minister had continuously emphasized to the O&G segment that the dasar right now is the aspiration of the state 80-100. What is 80-100? So 80% of the technical, you mentioned technical
roles,
manpower would be Sabahan, while the 100% non-technical would be Sabahan. But this is an aspiration of the state. So from that dasar itself, SC4 or Subcommittee 4 in the government, in the committee of the oil and gas itself, and Subcommittee 5 is working to ensure they meet the 80-100%. target itself. Of course, we know that is an ambitious target for Sabah as of current moment. That's why we need to do awareness first.
Okay.
Let me start off with awareness. Why? Because a lot of our youth, a lot of our young people are not aware that we have oil and gas industry. I myself get involved in the oil and gas industry is because my father is in the oil and gas industry. Most of my peers in the industry, somehow they have some connections, mean father or relations, cousins or uncles who are in the industry. So that's how they get to know the industry. Because most of our young people, our talented young people, they might not be exposed to the industries. They do not know where to start off. Yeah, because we don't see much of a roadshow saying, this is the oil and gas talks on how you go to develop your career in the oil and gas industry, right? We don't see that much. But we always see this kind of roadshow in Sarawak.
Okay.
Sarawak is actively telling their young people, and they have training facilities, even marine, in terms of marine, they have their offshore training facilities. They even have, tempat for them to do intern in a way. But in Sabah, we don't see that. We have, I think, one training facility, which is TAS Institute of Oil and Gas.
Okay.
So TAS Institute, but they are only on a technician level. So they are semi-technical in a sense. They yet to produce engineers or specialists. And I believe TAS is on progress. They are collaborating with certain international institutions to upgrade their diploma or BTech programs so that they are able to meet the industry demand. But you only have one training center per se. But in Sarawak, you got multitudes of training center for them to conduct training and then subsequently send offshore. So my view is we are seeing the awareness is not there. So when you do not have the awareness, how do you fit the capability or increase the capability? Because when we had our SLCC or Local Content Council meeting, we see that there's X numbers of position, though those position is considered semi-technical or non-technical position, are not being filled by Sabahans because there's no Sabahans to fill those positions. So we need to address the key issue, which is getting the numbers of people into the industry first.
Okay.
So that's the thing. But we have also, I might say, we have good Sabahans who are international, in the international arena. They've been to Qatar, they've been to other international companies. But those people, if you see, they are there because they knew the industry in the first place. So right now, the key thing is how we make our young people aware on this industry.
Okay. And I think this, if I may add to that, and it suddenly came into my mind, you see, this is my thought of it. If really, federal is also trying to help Sabah and Sarawak, right? I would say this, and my question also, and perhaps I would like to ask your opinion about this. Why do you have University Technology Petronas in Johor when you don't have oil there, right? And if really that we want to have more manpower and really have expertise, why don't we fight for having University Technology Petronas in Sabah or Sarawak?
I think that's a good thing, but
that's you have all the oil and gas. We produce the most, the highest, gas, and oil and gas mostly is from Sabah and Sarawak. Obviously, Kelantan and Terengganu pun nanti mau juga kan UTP. Tapi, I'm looking at the perspective of East Malaysia. Why can't we have UTP here?
Okay. Let's.
Suddenly right. I thought of this.
Having a university would be, of course, a great thing because
that would be like giving you awareness,
right?
Awareness.
But first thing first, we need to see who's going to spend to open up those university. Maybe Petronas will spend it lah.
Maybe
That's a
Sarawak
good
would want to
proposal.
do it also lah.
Maybe Sarawak. But right now, I think the first thing we need to address is addressing, not university is at the end there. It's a technical specialist area. But when we can't even address the semi-technical or the non-technical, I mean, it's a good aspiration, but these things we have to go step by step. And I believe Petronas would be eager to support this initiative. Petronas is very eager to support local upbringing in terms of sponsorship of studies. We can see the numbers of Sabahans and Sarawakians being sponsored under Petronas and other PACs continue to be at a high number because they see that the Sarawakian, our East Borneo, our Borneo is a very good supply of manpower for their organization itself. So they continue to have those activities. But when we go to university, that's a good idea. But of course, how to do it, that's another topic. Like you caught me off guard there. How are we going to do this university? That one we need to have talks between the two state government and of course with Petronas.
No.
Definitely Petronas would need to come in to
come.
Maybe other PAC like Shell,
yeah,
they're willing to invest.
But the thing is, right? I mean, the only way, I mean, yes, there's this thing where you have to, downstream, you have to have more training centers and so forth. But I think, how do you want to create awareness is that, bring the whole thing there, you're aware. But again, I like it when we had that earlier conversation when you said that people don't even know that Kimani spoon exists, So perhaps there needs to be a bit more aggressive, I said, in terms of, awareness towards our young people. But I really hope that, Sabah's real power lies in value of creation, I would say.
Yes.
Like capturing contracts, upskilling talents, and driving local content policies, I suppose, in this manner. So I really hope that a lot and more of our young people will be aware about this. I mean, of course, we understand that here in Sabah, one of the big issues that we are facing is unemployment. In fact, we are the highest in Malaysia.
Yes. Correct.
And if we look at it, actually banyak kerja. Kalau, as you mentioned just now, ramai yang tidak dapat, yang tidak dapat sebab ada banyak kekosongan tapi tidak dapat dimasukkan sebab tiada ada skill itu, tiada expertise itu di Sabah. So I think, I just hope that, people will see this as a new sort of like employment industry that is to be filled here in Sabah.
In actual, we are currently going to an employment drive in a sense because how do you get employment first? In order to get employment, we need to have the contracts coming in to local companies. Like you mentioned just now, local content policy. The state government through CCA had made great progress in this. And we see this year itself, there's a number of contracts awarded to companies, local Sabahan companies. So because of that, they're able to employ more locals to join the ecosystem itself. So that's one way that this unemployment issue is being settled through local content policy.
Right.
So but then, of course, we can't be solving world hunger yet. That's one step after another. So there's many other steps that need to be done to eradicate unemployment per se.
So how does SOGSC's role in this, like in driving or creating jobs directly?
Okay.
In the oil and gas industry in Sabah.
All right. SOGSC, like I mentioned, we are an industry association. We have currently 96 companies under us. So part of the 96 companies, their policy, which is also the state policy, is Sabah first. So meaning to say, in addition to growing the industry or growing the contracts awarded to local companies, we also make initiative to ask the local companies or mandate the local companies within our group to employ Sabahans. And we can see the numbers because we have reports also. So Petronas and also collects data on how many Sabahans you have and how many non-Sabahans you employed. So majority of our members complies to the 100%. So I'm very proud to say most of them are taking 80%. Of course, they have 20% non-Sabahans in the technical segment, but 100% in the non-technical segment, they are taking it up. So this can ultimately translate that with SOGSC and our members actively getting the contracts, we are also actively employing locals. So that's one part. Second part is where we sit in the Sabah Local Content Council together with Petronas and the state government through SMJ Energy. We look into the numbers of the Sabahan. So, for example, one of the meetings might say, we got riggers. Riggers is tukang tarik-tarik lah begitu dia punya kerja. So surprisingly, there's a high number of non-Sabahan also doing rigging job, where else these jobs can be filled by Sabahans. So they need input from us, from the industry itself, to understand adakah cukup orang. So we always said our members always rigger orang Sabah juga. Jadi why are you providing work permit untuk non-Sabahan to work in a segment yang ada the talent pool there, yang kadang-kadang dorang tunggu karena employ. So one of the way is, then the council or the committee decide, if there is, then we need to strengthen the work permit for the riggers. We need to allow Sabahans first. And then, of course, the target is to have those Sabahans aware that there is a vacancy there. So the next step is having open career day. We joined with Petronas to have recently, I think, mid of this year, open career day. We blast that we have an open career day, job opportunities available for you, and we expect during that time 1,000 jobs are being taken up by Sabahan. Whether it's they used to work in the industry, come back, or fresh grade. So it's not a big number, but we are starting small and slowly progressing.
Incremental lah.
Better and better.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So that's how SOGSC does our role.
Right. So I guess in summary, I would say that SOGSC's role is to build an army of strong Sabah businesses.
Correct.
Right. That is capable of capturing wealth.
Correct.
And creating jobs directly.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Let's take a short break. All right. Now let's talk about the future beyond oil. So globally, the energy industry is transitioning, right?
Correct.
So Petronas targets net zero by 2050, and focusing on renewable natural gas and as well as carbon capture. And I think the whole world is also going to that. Sabah is also moving towards that slowly. But and then, as how we can see in the Sabah Energy Roadmap and Master Plan 2040, 100% rural electrification by 2030, 50% renewable energy by 2035, and carbon neutrality by 2050. So the recent, some recent article that I've read, Jesselton, that Sabah has 101 gigawatt of renewable energy potential, but only 7% of our current energy mix is renewable, right? So the shift requires, of course, again, coming back to high expertise, engineers, financing green infrastructure, of course, and preparing SMEs for hydrogen and CCUS economy. And of course, we have heard that the CCUS enactment or law has been passed recently. So perhaps you can also, we can discuss about that too. But before that, I would want to ask you about where do Sabah SMEs already have a foothold in renewable?
Right. I think, thank you, Joanna, for that question. Sabah, in a say, though our contractors and all in terms of our oil and gas contractors are in in the oil and gas industry, but this industry itself also provides an avenue for them to expand into renewables. For example, in the current offshore projects, they have installation of solar panels, installation of wind turbines, and etc. And sometimes I think they had an experimental on wave, generating energy to power the platform via wave motions or current motions. So at the end of the day, we see the contractors or the vendors, they are an energy provider or energy service provider, I might say. So they provide services and equipment to whatever energy provider it is, whether it's Petronas or when Petronas transit to renewable, they will be there to give their services to whatever is the new form of energy.
Okay.
Right? Right now it's hydrocarbon. Then in the future it might be whatever renewable it might be. To be honest, we do not know yet. Some are saying hydrogen, some are saying wind, but at the end, the infrastructures we have to see. We can have huge potential. Why in Sabah, like you mentioned, 110 megawatt itself, unutilized potential.
Yes.
So with those potential that they gain, with the experience that they gain from the O&G segment, they actually can use those potential experience to a new potential field, which can be in other forms of renewable, right? And Petronas, I might say, also are interested in opening. They have not declared yet, but they might come in the form of their subsidiary Gentari. So Gentari is into hydrogen and into solar and into wind. So apparently Petronas is in talk. They had been in Sarawak. They already had a successful pilot program for hydrogen in Sarawak. They are thinking of expanding into Sabah. So definitely there will be vast opportunities for SME companies, not only oil and gas companies, but SME to venture into the renewable. And I believe even us in the oil and gas segment, we are supportive of this new initiative, because at the end of the day, we see each other as both energy providers. We provide energy to the people, regardless whether it's hydrocarbon or renewable itself.
Right. Now, I just want to ask you on the ambitions that has been set by the Sabah Energy Roadmap and Master Plan 2040, right? So one of them is 100% rural electrification by 2030. Now we are like, what?
Now 2025.
25. So that's
years.
like 5 years from now, or maybe less than 5 years.
Yeah, because we are already
in August. I'm sorry, October.
September.
Yeah, so we are towards the end of the year, right? Do you think that this is such an ambitious goal that would it be even materialized at this point when you look at the at the speed that we are going through?
Okay. My point of view is Sabah still needs, first thing first, before we electrify the rural area, we still need to settle our, urban area also. Because
exactly.
We are looking into energy shortage.
Yes.
Like it or not, our percentage of the energy itself, like you mentioned, we depend 85% on natural gas.
Natural gas, yes.
So the moment something happened with our offshore facilities, like if you see in the news, they might want to do Chatuan, right? Because in one of the offshore facilities, there's a shutdown happening.
Yes.
So then electricity is insufficient because there's no natural gas being supplied to those IPPs. So before we even talk about electrifying our rural area, we need to settle our urban area first. And then in addition to that, I think one of the main reason why investors are not coming into Sabah is because of power and water.
Water, yeah.
I think that's an open secret. Everybody knows that. And every government of the day is trying their best to settle this. Because if you can settle water and power, definitely investors are coming in. So one of the best way to settle power is, of course, you burn something up lah, natural gas or hydrocarbon lah. But then that's right now is not sustainable towards the 2050 goal. We need to actually really sit down and see what Sabah potential can be for the energy segment.
Exactly.
Not only relying actually natural gas. This is from an oil and gas guy saying not relying on natural gas, because natural gas is we can actually monetize those natural gas for other purposes, for other downstream products. So coming back to the topic, I feel it's still in the long run, 2030 to settle electrification.
Exactly. We cannot even settle the urban areas, let alone the rural areas. So I find it that I think it's true enough, and I totally concur with you when you say that we have to not rely on natural gas only, but we have to look for other alternatives in order for us to make sure that we are fully electrified.
Correct.
Not only rural, but the whole Sabah is
yes.
fully electrified. And of course, we know that I think the East Coast is even facing even worse scenarios where they always have blackouts most of the time, right? As opposed to here in the West Coast. So yeah, I mean, I think with Sabah has that big or humongous amount of renewable energy potential, I see this that perhaps we have to be more aggressive into looking into renewable energy.
Our renewable energy is quite fragmented. If we can see, some are saying that let's go for hydrogen.
Exactly.
Some are saying let's go for wind. But if we look into this particular segment, all of them are not as efficient as hydrocarbons, I might say. Because hydrocarbons, you can get a higher efficiency rate, meaning to say you produce more energy with the hydrocarbons that you burn. So, for example, like solar, the efficiency rate is almost 50%, let's say, because the moment the sun goes down, you do not have
no more energy.
No more energy being produced. And then you have issue with batteries. So wind is also another thing. So hydrogen is saying that they can go into that direction.
But Sarawak is doing that, huh?
Sarawak is doing hydrogen.
But why not Sabah
right now? Like I said, they are working together with Petronas, Gentari,
yes, exactly,
to have hydrogen plant. And I believe Gentari is slowly positioning themselves in the region to be the premier energy source. Maybe they might overshine their parent company Petronas, but at the end goal is to get clean energy and to meet 2050 net zero initiative itself. But saying that, we still, for the time being, though with this policy, oil and gas is still an important industry that we need to look into still. Many saying it's a sunset industry, but I always say it's a long sunset. Our grandchildren might be when our grandchildren grow up, the industry might be there still, because most of our modern facilities or modern amenities are depending on the hydrocarbons, like the cups that we have. Those are dependent on hydrocarbon. The specs that we have. So at the end of the day, it's a long sunset, but then it's pairing up with all those alternative energy to find the right mixture, we might say the right mixture, so that our whole ecosystem can be balanced back up. Then CCUS come in to take back all the CO2 in a sense that had been released out via hydrocarbons in the past decade, put it back into the underground. This is a very layman explanation per se Don't quote as technical. They are more technical aspect to it.
Of course.
But layman per se is
kasih balik pinggir tanah lah.
Because it's cracked. I mean, you burn carbon, so that's why CO2 is released. Hydrocarbon release CO2, then you get back Then slowly, as we use hydrocarbon, as they phase out hydrocarbons from the main energy source to maybe just to become other other modern, what you call, catalysts for our modern life. So then the new energy comes in to supplement the current energy mix.
Right.
Yeah. So, but then until that happen, we still need hydrocarbons for our energy itself.
Okay. So looking into the future, right, for Sabah's future oil and gas, and of course in renewable energy, and as a person of being in this industry of oil and gas, you think Sabah should set up a sovereign wealth fund to invest in O&G revenues in diversification, you think?
In my opinion, it is good to have a sovereign wealth fund, just like what Norway is doing.
Yes.
Then they reinvest in other investment to further increase the money inside or the principal amount. That's a good idea. But of course, we leave it to the government of the day to make the decision. Of course, they
in
know. In
fact, Sarawak is doing that too. Also,
Sarawak,
yeah,
they have the monetary capacity.
Yes.
But I think Sabah, we need to settle our basic infrastructure needs and everything. So I believe the government of the day have all the opinions on getting this what you call this sovereign wealth funds in place. But then you need to well manage it with professionals to ensure that those sovereign wealth funds really serve the purpose of the people. So then, and I believe as we progress, as the oil and gas progress in Sabah, where we continue to get more revenue from the production sharing, from our SST, from our royalties, and etc., there might be a sovereign wealth fund in place for our next generation itself. But then, like I mentioned early on, let the government of the day decide on how to do it in the best interest of our people.
I like it when you say that, oil and gas industry is not a sunset, but it's long way lagi mau jadi sunset.
Oh, jong dunia sana.
But oil can fund our future. But I would say oil can fund our future, right, in Sabah. And I think with this resources, this wealth that has been naturally given by God to us, and I think if we have to utilize it for the purposes and the betterment for our society. That's how I see it. And thank you so much, Jesselton, for having coming here and discuss quite a heavy topic today, but I find it very interesting, and I've learned a lot from you. And it's such a very small and very short time, and I realized that today's conversation shows Sabah's future isn't just about how much we get from oil, but it's also how much value we can create and keep here at home too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. So thank you so much, Jesselton, once again. And the Sabah Oil, the Vice President of the Sabah Oil and Gas Services Council, for joining us today. And if you found this episode insightful, don't forget to follow us on Smart Talk Sabah and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Share this episode and let's get more Sabahans involved in shaping our oil and gas industry and the energy future of Sabah. So I'm Joanna Suhenli Rampas, and this is Smart Talks Sabah. Until we meet again in the next episode.